Dolphin fans, training camp season is upon us, and I'm going to be breaking down the Miami Dolphins offense heading into training camp, positions of strength, positions that concern me, and all of the battles I'm interested to see in this upcoming training camp. Before I get into today's content, check out the DolphinsDive.com for the best Dolphins merch out there, like this Alec Ingold fullbacks are people to a T. Without further ado, we're going to hop right into the most important position in all of sports, the quarterback. Now, the Dolphins quarterback room is pretty straightforward in terms of rankings besides quarterback 2 job, but the big question mark is Tua going to hold out because of this contract scenario. Now, Tua wants to get paid. He deserves to get paid. The Dolphins want to pay him, but there's been no progress made. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I believe Tua was sitting out of some stuff at OTAs because of the contract situation. So who knows what he's going to do in training camp, but if he does sit out reps, that just hurts the team, which is why I feel like if the Dolphins want to pay him, the difference in contract can't be that large. I feel like you just got to get it done. Make Tua happy, answer that question so there's no more question marks heading into training camp. But regardless, Tua is quarterback 1, clear and cut. The real question mark is who's QB2, Skylar Thompson or Mike White. They had a battle last year. Mike White was a QB2. What happens this year? Who wins the job? And then what do the Dolphins do with QB3? Because some teams carry 3 quarterbacks. Mike McDaniel has every year as a Dolphin head coach, but who knows? You could trade the quarterback 3, potentially get a returner, or they might just keep all 3 quarterbacks. But that's the main question mark for the quarterback position. Tua is sitting out, and who's QB2? Running back room honestly might be the most loaded room on the entire team. Top to bottom, every single player is a quality player. Starting with the head honcho, in my opinion, is Raheem Mostert. I think it's his backfield until it isn't. Next guy, obviously, Devon Achane had a phenomenal rookie season. Went down with a couple injuries, but phenomenal talent, one of the fastest players in the entire league. I'm speculating personally because of the next guy on this list that I wouldn't be surprised if Devon Achane gets a lot of work in the slot, but who knows? The Dolphins also addressed the wide receiver 3 position, so should just be interesting how the Dolphins use Achane, especially since they did just draft Jalen Wright, who is next on the list. An extremely good talent coming out of Tennessee. He's more of a running back build. Achane's a smaller kind of guy, but Wright looks the part. He's a big dude, super explosive. I honestly said it in my short form video. I expect Jalen Wright by the end of the season to be the main early down back. But once again, I'm just so interested to see how they plan to use all of these talents in the backfield. Next on this list is Salvon Ahmed, who got a good run with the Dolphins last season prior to going down with injury. He made some good plays for us. He's made some plays his entire Dolphins tenure, one of the longest tenured Dolphins, which is sad to say. But this might be the year he unfortunately gets cut because the room is so stacked, but who knows how he bounces back from injury. Next on this list is Jeff Wilson, who took a pay cut to stay with the team. Once again, I think it's going to be a long road for him to make this roster. I'm a big Jeff Wilson fan. I said all of last year he wasn't getting enough touches because when he touched the ball, good things happen. He'd spark up the team because he'd run someone over and fire people up. He's always had success in this scheme, so who knows how training camp goes. That's the thing I love about training camp is you can have all these preconceived notions heading into it, and then best man wins. And Mike McDaniel loves to emphasize this, but competition breeds excellence. So you might have Mostert RB1, but what if Jeff Wilson just goes off? You just never know. Obviously, there are some written starters, but it's just a fun thing about training camp. And then the last guy on this list, Chris Brooks, a training camp surprise last season. UDFA, who made the roster, had some good run, like a lot of people at the running back position, went down with injury and then never really got an opportunity again. But who knows? Maybe Chris Brooks balls out, makes your roster spot. I think it's a long climb for Ahmed, Wilson, and Brooks. I think one of those 3 will make the roster, and unfortunately 2 will get cut. And then obviously penciled into running back is Alec Ingold, who has a lot to make the roster. He's our only fullback, and he's one of the best in all of football. Now on to the wide receiver position, which, like the running back position, also absolutely loaded. Obviously starting with Tyreek Hill, who might be the best player in all of football. Jalen Waddle, who just got paid. I expect him to continue to ascend. He's only getting better, and he's still super young. I'm excited to see what J-Dub does in year 4, is it now? But yeah, he's been putting in great work this offseason. I think will translate into the offense. And then third is obviously Odell Beckham Jr., who the Dolphins just acquired, to be that guy where if Waddle and Tyreek are both getting doubled, which would happen a lot last year on 3rd downs, this is where you expect OBJ to win and make a big impact for this team because the Dolphins were not getting that kind of impact last year from the likes of like Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft. Next on this list is Eric Ezukanma, who I'm excited to see. He went down with that injury last year. I said he was in like a diet Deebo Samuel role last year in the Chargers game prior to the injury. They had him out of the backfield, passes from there, running out of there. So I don't know what his health status is, but if he's healthy, I'm excited to see what he can do. Braxton Berrios, who is likely to make this roster just purely off being a return man, but who knows, especially with the new kickoff rules, how that's even going to look. Maybe you're more inclined to use a top player to do the returns, and that makes Berrios less or more expendable for the team. River Craycraft, who's been here as long as McDaniel has, makes clutch plays. I love River Craycraft. It's going to be an uphill battle for him to make this roster. Malik Washington and Taj Washington, the Washingtons, both rookies. Taj Washington unfortunately did get placed on the PUP list. The extent of that injury is yet to be known, so he might be done. I really don't know. But Malik Washington's an exciting guy. He's short but extremely explosive. Should be interesting to see how he performs in training camp. And then some long shots to make the roster. Braylon Sanders, who's been with the Dolphins the past couple of years, has always made some great plays. It's such a good room that's hard to make it, especially when you have certain guys that are specialized in certain roles. Having a guy like River Craycraft, who Braylon might be more talented than, but River Craycraft can play every single position. Anthony Schwartz, who's a burner, one of the fastest receivers in all football. He's bounced around the league. It's going to be hard to crack this roster, but who knows? And then Jaquan Burton, who's an undrafted free agent. Once again, you never know which UDFA might emerge, but it's hard to project that heading into training camp. On to the tight end position. Dolphins did a phenomenal job upgrading this position in the offseason. Obviously adding Jonnu Smith, who's the biggest piece in my opinion. He's a solid blocker. He's capable. He's not going to be the best blocker in the world, but he's quality. But his main value is going to be in the receiving game, being able to be a big body in the game, as well as hard to tackle. His run after catch numbers are tremendous, which are extremely valuable in this offense. The Dolphins have lacked that from the tight end position, and going back to McDaniel's years with the 49ers, you look at George Kittle and being able to get that run after the catch. When you have a tight end who you don't look forward to tackling as a cornerback, provides all that kind of value. You can run tight end screens. There's so much you can do. And when's the last time the Dolphins have had someone that's like hard to tackle that was a tight end? I don't know. It's been a long time, and I think Jonnu provides that skill set. Durham Smythe, who is still going to get good playing time on this team just purely for his blocking, because blocking is extremely important in this scheme, and Durham is a very good blocker. So I think he might have led the offense in snaps outside of Tua last year. So would not be surprised to see Durham Smythe get a lot of run, even though Jonnu was added. Julian Hill, another UDFA who made it last year, had some good snaps with the Dolphins. Expect him to at least battle for tight end 3 job. Should be interesting to see how the Dolphins go about that position. Jody Fortson, who the Dolphins signed from the Chiefs, tremendous athlete, more of like a athletic receiving type of tight end, has extremely high upside. He's just dealt with a ton of injuries, but when you see some of the highlights he makes, like that man can jump high. He could be a great red zone threat for us. Should be interesting to see how he does this training camp. And then the back 2 guys, Tanner Connor and Hayden Rucci, I think both long shots to make this roster. Tanner Connor's been here the past couple of years. Should just be interesting to see. And then on to the last position for the offense. Check out part 2 for the defense coming out. Offensive line is my biggest concern for the entire Dolphins. Now, to be fair, it was my biggest concern last year, and considering the injuries they went through, that concern was not warranted. I know Chris Greer had that quote,
"You guys are probably more worried than we are."
And people try to rehash that. It's like the Dolphins had so many injuries, and the fact that the O-line was playing as good as it was despite those injuries was extremely impressive. So all the credit in the world to Mike McDaniel and Butch Berry, the offensive line coach. But just projecting the starting offensive line, I have Teron Armstead, which obviously he's going to play like half the snaps. Isaiah Wynn at left guard, although he was placed on the PUP because that injury has never been clear to us fans. So I don't know if he's going to be ready for the start of the season or not. The extent, once again, of the injury was not fully clear. Aaron Brewer penciled in at starting center. Robert Jones, right guard, but it's the biggest competition. And then Austin Jackson starting right tackle. Now on for the other guys that I have kind of as backups fighting for a position or competing. Keon Smith I have as a swing tackle. He had some good snaps last year. Still young, developing kind of player. But once again, with the Teron Armstead, you're going to have someone that can back him up. Patrick Paul, too, who we drafted in the 2nd round, coming out very clear-cut, a high upside, developmental kind of player. So I don't know if they just plan on redshirting him, because the Dolphins already, I feel like, have Teron Armstead's backup in Kendall Lamb / Keon Smith. So I feel like Patrick Paul is just on a redshirt year, in my opinion, but maybe he surprises out of camp, and maybe he's just the backup, and one of those veteran guys get cut. I'm not fully sure. I already mentioned Kendall Lamb. He can play all over. He played left tackle, I think, some right tackle, some guard for us. So he played very good in this scheme for us, and he's in his last year. He said he's going to retire after this year, but he's a quality backup left tackle to have on the roster. Now, the biggest name I'm looking out for this training camp is going to be Jack Driscoll, who the Dolphins brought over from the Eagles, who are obviously known as one of the best offensive lines in all of football. He's a versatile guy. He played tackle and guard, which works for the Dolphins. We do need a right guard, and he is going to compete. I think the main competition on this offensive line is going to be Jack Driscoll versus Robert Jones. But once again, I don't fully know what's going on with Isaiah Wynn. So if Isaiah Wynn's not going to be ready, then you can slot Robert Jones at left guard, Jack Driscoll at right guard, and let that be that. Liam Eichenberg, who I know gets a lot of criticism from the fan base, but I honestly think he did a commendable job last year at the center position, dealing with the injury he was dealing with. He was in a walking boot every single day aside from game day, and his center play was not awful. I think if you gave him the health that you hope to have and more reps at center, I think he would be even better. So I wouldn't even rule out Eichenberg competing for the center job as well as for the left guard position. We've seen what this coaching staff can do with the likes of Austin Jackson, who was in the doghouse of the fan base and now has emerged himself as probably the best starter on our offensive line when Teron Armstead isn't healthy. So you never know what's going to happen with some kind of development, which is why I love this coaching staff. Previous coaching staffs, you could write off these players because guess what? You just knew they weren't going to get developed. They'd get beaten into the ground, cut, and then they're gone. But you just never know. And then some long shots to make this roster, mainly just UDFAs, Andrew Meyer, Ireland Brown, Matthew Jones. Funny enough, all of these guys were college centers and guards, so they have the cross training, which you, especially for backup offensive linemen, because you usually only carry 8 linemen on game day, having that versatility is very valuable. But overall for this offensive line, it's scary because the Dolphins don't have a lot of quality names. Now obviously name versus actual play is different, but I do think they have a lot of talent. I think they have like 11 guys on the roster. I think you have 8. It's gonna be hard to make cuts, which is what you want. You want a lot of competition, let the best men win, and then you have the best players left over as your backups. I think that's the best case scenario. So the best people win, and maybe UDFA emerges. You just never know. But I have the confidence of this coaching staff to get the offensive line right. Comment your thoughts down below though on the Dolphins offense heading into this training camp. What are the battles you're looking forward to see? What positions have you nervous? But I appreciate you guys for watching. Like and subscribe to help the channel grow. And until next time, fins up.